This is a video about how our input impacts our output as creative people. The things we do on a daily basis, from the people we interact with, to of course the questions ourselves and the activities we engage in, really affect us. If you are a creative person and struggle with any kind of emotional upkeep, this is probably a video for you. This of course stems from a video I created a few months back about self-taught learners. And one of the topics that you guys wanted to hear more about the most were empowering questions. So what are empowering questions? These are simply questions we can ask ourselves and in an empowering way to help us achieve our creative goals. In addition, they can help us work through creative blocks and gain new perspectives in our workflows. I'm going to break these down into 3 big categories and how they can, of course, address each and individual one, from self-doubt, just feeling stuck, and feeling fatigued. So let's get into this. All right, so now dealing with self-doubt. And one thing we can actually do before we even begin to consider asking ourselves questions is to kind of get to a point internally where we understand where we already are. And a great way to do this and in a beneficial way is simply by journaling. I have one of these here I actually slide it under my monitor on my display stand from GroveMade, and it really does help me track my accomplishments, look at my strengths, and analyze my own progression on a number of things. And that really leads us to one question that I feel as creative people we can really ask ourselves, and that is, what motivates me to succeed? This is a question I have to ask myself multiple times a week. And I do feel it's empowering because it keeps myself in check. For me, my biggest thing on why I need to succeed is for my family. I've got a big property here. I got a wife. I got 2 kids. If I don't succeed, their livelihood is at stake. So that motivates me to show up every day and give it my best. But I realize, as a younger person that may not have those specific needs, maybe you want to work on a specific project. Maybe you want to be in the ecosystem of a particular company, a dream studio. Maybe you just want to avoid going to a 9-to-5 day job and you want to create every day and find a way to get paid for it. Either way, what motivates you? That's what you want to get down to. And so a great way to address this with a follow-up question is, how can I make this day productive? One way I like to address that question specifically every day is write down my top 3 priorities that without compromise absolutely have to get done. The longer you put off a task, the harder it is often to start. So for example, today, the big things that I have to get done is I got an illustration I want to work on for myself. I want to finish a study, and I want to record this video. That's not counting, of course, a lot of my other obligations. Like at 3 p.m. today, I got to teach a class. Like I have to go to the gym. I'm not going to count those because I'm just going to do those anyway. They're a habit. They're part of the schedule. Basically, you want to look at the flexible parts of your schedule and schedule things in. Fill those blanks immediately. And that leads, of course, to another great question and that I like to ask myself is simply, what matters the most here? What matters the most in my day? What matters to me most in my work? So it kind of can be a little bit of external and internal on what matters most, right, at a given moment. And it's not about optimizing your schedule or min-maxing your time so that you fit something productive in every little ounce of time you have. I'm not saying that, because I think what you want to consider, what I have to consider every day is, what is the most important thing in my life on a given day, in a given week, and make sure I have time, make sure I have attention to address that. This time of year, my kids are home from school. They're home for the summer. It's all about the summertime and spending as much time as I can with my family. I do work less, a lot less in these summer months. My creative output is lower, but I get to really engage with my kids at these formidable ages when my time with them matters the most. And of course, not only by prioritizing things, if you mark all essential things on your calendar, that's going to really help ensure that you do get done not only the most important things, but the things that do, of course, matter most to you. And if it's something that I've had to learn, if I don't plan my time and let my family know what I'm doing and when I'm doing it, my time gets planned for me. That's not always ideal, because then all of a sudden half the day has gone by and I'm like, what happened? What did I get done? I honestly get frustrated more than I care to even admit about that aspect of it. But yeah, I have to be really transparent with my wife. It's something we've gone back and forth in our relationship that I've had to work through to make sure, like, these are what needs to get done today. I'm free now and I'm free then, but this block of time, don't schedule me for anything. She will. She absolutely will. And of course, this leads to the next big question I like to ask is, like, what action can I take to move me forward on a goal, a particular goal, right? So we're journaling our ideas down, we're listing out our goals. It's often great to think and reflect, of course, how can I immediately move closer to it? Whether it is simply recording a video, getting all these thoughts and ideas out in front of a particular audience, finish that other piece of Final Fantasy fan art, I've been working on. Will that help me achieve a specific goal? No, but I just may want to do it. If I want to build my environment course, which I've been putting off way too long, I could ask myself today, what steps do I need to take today to make that happen? Well, I could just simply list it out, or I could finish a demo I was recording for it. And I know for a lot of people, it may be a matter of just simply networking with the right person and reach your goals. It can be just simply the act of reaching out to someone that you wanted to or hesitated to. Is it to fill in a skill gap? Do you need to achieve a particular skill or showcase a particular skill to achieve a goal? Go learn something. Take a course. And I feel all of these things will certainly help you achieve any kind of self-doubt you have, because you can reassure yourself what you have. You're going to have a clear trajectory of where you're going. And of course, you're going to be really present in knowing what you need to do to keep moving forward, not getting hung up on what's behind you. All right, guys, so you're feeling stuck. This can be just a simple matter of taking a shower, getting some alone time, clearing your head, perhaps even doing like a small chore. This time of year, I'm always out gardening. It definitely helps me come in with a clear mindset when I'm back here at the desk grinding out the work. But I like to ask myself, what do I really love to do? And then if I'm truly procrastinating, get this, you can make a deal with yourself. So for example, I really like playing on my PS5. So I have to tell myself, I can only do that if I start this or finish that or put in X amount of time on this. So I'm just simply kind of rewarding myself with the things that I absolutely love doing. Because I'm going to spend time with my kids anyway. That's a non-negotiable. But like other things, external things that I like. Let me know below what non-art things that you guys really love to do, and if you can give any other ideas for other people as to what kind of rewards they could set up for themselves. But the other big question that I like to ask myself, and that I even ask my students, in this scenario here, is how can I do this differently, right? If we're just working on our work and we're getting stuck, maybe it's technically in this scenario, like my student Alessandro here, he had some really great results coming up with these wind temple ideas, but he was feeling stuck and we were kind of plateauing out where that idea was going. So, let's rewind. Let's try this a bit differently. Let's try making a small, simple, primitive modular kit, using Blender, and see where that takes us. He did that, got way better, way different results, and I do feel the designs started to really reach their own, after taking a different approach to things. Which leads to the next question. The other question I think that can really help us when we're creatively stuck is, what can I learn from other artists? So just a few months ago, for example, I was just kind of chilling, browsing on YouTube, and I accidentally found the artist Alex Pie. He does these awesome Blender 3D coat time lapses. They're really fast. They're hard to follow on a step-by-step basis, but I really did enjoy them, and it really did show me the creative potential of using a workflow using those two softwares. So I watched it, I digested it, I went in and tried to implement that in my Zelda pieces that I did just before Tears of the Kingdom came out, and I loved it. So again, there's always someone out there that's some steps ahead of you in some regard. Try to figure out where they are, who they are, deconstruct it, and then practice it. And in the case that I did, since I was teaching, and so that's what I was doing. Since I was kind of taking it in, learning it from Alex, I was then trying it and testing it. I was then teaching it to my patrons, because it was really helping me learn that twice as fast by teaching it as soon as I was taking it in. But it doesn't have to be purely technique. You could learn other business practices from successful creatives. You could learn more about their history with their creative choices and how that has grown and changed over the years. If you really, go back and thumb through their older galleries, there's just a lot out there. There's a lot to take in. And the last question for this segment here that kind of came out of nowhere, and you might find it surprising, but like, what could I create if I absolutely had no fear of judgment, right? Like if I existed in a vacuum, nobody else is going to judge me. What would I create? What would I be capable of creating? And I thought of this, this one example, because on Twitter, before it became the whole X-Men thing, like a couple weeks ago, this guy followed me. I'm like, I want to see what you're creating. Anyone that follows me, I kind of do some snooping. And surprisingly, but not surprisingly, it was all Minotaur-like men that were very sexualized. I won't show a lot of that work here because it's not safe. But, I was like, wow, this guy doesn't give a damn about anything. He's going to paint whatever he wants. No fear, right? So think of the creative potential that could unlock in yourself if you did not fear what other people are judging you from. Think of how authentic, to your true self that you could really achieve. I guess the closest, most wild thing that I can think of along those lines is like back in 2010 when I created Chewbacca riding a squirrel fighting a bunch of Nazis. I was young there. I didn't care. Like, let's see what this says. It's a bunch of nonsense. But yeah, like, what would you create, if you had no fear of judgment? And so for our last point here, right, just being fatigued. Well, the biggest lesson I had to learn and implement to myself was simply just going to sleep. What am I compromising tomorrow, right? The day to come by just staying up too late? Probably making bad decisions, probably wasting my time having an extra drink or playing on a video game too long. I'm compromising the next day. So I've been forcing myself all summer long to go to bed about an hour earlier than I typically have been. And it's been making my output on the day-to-day a lot more productive. But the question, you guys can ask yourself, and I do think is a very important question, is what can I do to relax and recharge? The trick really is, in instances like this, you want to keep the work fun. So I do plan and schedule breaks. I schedule time blocks that I can game, right? That I can fun, that I can go outside and play with the hose with my boy. Whatever, really is going to be matter. That's why those other questions I mentioned up front are equally as important. And they're a great place to start because it all ties together. So the bottom line is with that, plan recreational time. A question, that we could ask ourselves when we're really feeling tired in our work is, am I being too self-critical? We all get to that point. I do all the time where I'm just like over-analyzing stuff. And that's what's making me slower, right? Paralysis by analysis. I'm just thinking too much about the idea, about the drawing. I'm getting too much in my own head and it's slowing everything down. And all these thoughts are just making me mentally fatigued. So I have to ask that question just to keep myself in check, to make sure I kind of pull back on myself a little bit. So generally, I just would say, just be kind to yourself. Try to redirect some self-criticism just into self-reflection. It's a simple fix, but it does wonders for me. If it's just pure creative block you're stuck in, you could just simply ask yourself, what can I learn, from this creative block? What kind of positivity can I yield from it? Again, don't look at it as negative. Try to find if the roots of it are, internally coming from your own thoughts and emotion, or is it something external? Is it something family, is it career-based? What's causing that creative block? If you can ask yourself what it is and try to get to the root of it, that'd be the easier way to fix it once it's, properly diagnosed. So guys, that's a list of all the questions that I ask myself, if not daily, but weekly, to kind of keep myself mentally in tune and creating regularly. I've never suffered, from creative block, and I never feel too tired. And at the root of all this, I think it's a matter of balancing and just being really conscientious of what is going into you as well as what's going out. But if you guys have a great topic you'd love to hear about, let me know below, and I'd love to hear from you. Take care.